feel like we also have the trade market, which we didn't really get into as much. We've hinted a little bit of it, of the Mets possibly making a blockbuster deal, which most likely would be for somebody like Garrett Crochet. And we know that there is going to be quite a return for him. There's going to be a centerpiece prospect, most likely, maybe 2 centerpiece prospects. We saw Anthony DeComo say that maybe you have to give up 2 top 5s. But when it comes to the log jam that the Mets have at second base right now, most likely one of these possible second basemen would be put in a trade. And to my question of what I would ask you guys here is, who would you consider as more of a centerpiece or willing to give up in a blockbuster trade, that being Jet Williams or Luis Acuna? I think you can go from different angles because we know we saw Luis Acuna come up here, be very productive in the little small sample he gave you. We know that you have the first round pedigree from Jet Williams.
It's kind of the game of what you've seen and what you haven't seen. It's the guy who had a 2-week sample in the major leagues compared to a guy who played 2 weeks of minor league baseball, it seemed like, because he's always getting hurt. But again, for me, especially for the guy that's on the graphic next to Juan Soto, if it's Crochet, it's going to start with Jet Williams, and I'm completely okay sending Jet Williams to Chicago and never see a winning season ever in his 20-year big league career if he has one, because of the fact that he got injured during the regular season, which they said, all right, make up for time, go play in the Arizona Fall League. What happens in the Arizona Fall League with like less than 3 games left to play? It's hurt again. It's an asset that is diminished because of the injury concern all last year, so you didn't see his value go up or down and just kind of, hover it out and say what he is, which we always made the joke of DJ Stewart. Well, in September, he played really well. Yes, different circumstances where Acuna was doing this in a pennant race and performed when our best player got hurt and kind of played to the same level of him. Again, it's 2 weeks. But for me, if you're telling me who am I rather trading, especially for Garrett Crochet, I'd rather trade the guy I have not seen any MLB at-bats for, and if there's still that, will he, question mark, but I've seen at least Acuna show something in the big leagues. Is it sustainable? We'll see, but I'd rather trade the guy I know than the guy I don't.
Ibby, I'll go to you. I know you're a Jet Williams fan. I know we've never had this discussion before regarding him, but...
Look, the way I look at both of them, I think to what Andrew was just saying, it's going to be Jet, because in all circles, in all places, he's still the number 1 prospect in this system, and people have just a higher grade on him all around because, coming up with Acuna, granted, the 2 weeks that he was up here, he kind of disproved the people that questioned his overall, skill set and his tools or what have you, and he played well. Again, small sample size, as it was just said, but he did show out a little bit more. But if you are trying to get a 25-year-old flame-throwing lefty from Chicago, then it's going to be Williams higher on that list as opposed to Acuna. I believe that wholeheartedly. And, in general, I don't want to go too off topic on this, but to answer the question at hand, yes, I would, even as a Jet Williams fan, and supporter, I would easily put him in a package to get a 25-year-old lefty like a Garrett Crochet. But the problem that I have with all of it is that as much as the reports come out, whether we believe them or not, when it comes to Chicago wanting up the middle type players, when you're dealing away a player like this, you're not dealing away a player to just settle for something. It's kind of like, drafting for need versus drafting the talent. And I don't think it's Chicago. They could be dumb enough, but I don't think that they would settle in these situations. I would hope that they would not settle in a situation. And even as a Jet Williams fan, if you're telling me that teams are offering you players of a much higher ilk, but they play corner positions, whether it's outfield or infield, whether it's Kobe Mayo or Sam Basayo or Christian Campbell or Roman Anthony or anyone like that, like those dwarf, no pun intended, those dwarf everything that the Mets have to offer. So again, it's fun to talk about. Yes, I would include him if I'm getting a Crochet, but I really don't think the quantity that the Mets can offer Chicago would be enough versus the quality that other teams can offer.
I mean, John, I'll go to you in this regard because I feel like you have been very adamant in, giving up what you need to bring in one of these top pieces if you have these bullets to spare.
I'll just preface it really quick by saying a couple things. One, Garrett Crochet does scare me a little bit. There's some things about the fact that he's, he does not have the length. We just talked about that with Minaya and Snell, but he's never done it. He spent part of the time as a reliever, and there's a lot of stuff about Garrett Crochet that scares me. The upside is stellar. I mean, you got a young lefty fireballer, great stuff. So I just will say that. I'll also say that I don't love either prospect. I was not super high on Acuna. I've not been super high on Jet Williams. I'm also not a prospect hugger like you alluded to. So I'll give up either guy, theoretically, if you tell me we can get a cost-controlled young lefty that throws hard and has great stuff. I think you made a great point when you said that Jet has the pedigree because of that round 1 pick. The injuries certainly are an issue there. Before the season, I would have said that Jet Williams was the better prospect. A lot of people who rank prospects and know more about systems than I do have said that, so I just would have deferred to that. But I know it's a small sample size. Acuna showed us, though, that sometimes big leaguers are just big leaguers. And I'm not saying that the 2 weeks means everything, but you want to talk about pedigree. This is a guy who literally has pedigree. His brother is one of the best players in baseball. I don't think he'll ever be that good, but it's just the truth. His father was no slouch. You've got this, just knows how to be a major league ball player. And sometimes that's enough. So to me, maybe that sample size, that small sample size, and that what Acuna came up and did makes him a little bit more valuable than it would have been had he not come up and had that. But to me, that makes him a little harder for me to trade away. So I would say Jet Williams is the more likely guy to get it done. And he's the guy I would be more comfortable dealing. Even if Jet Williams became a superstar somewhere, I would just, I don't know. There's something about trading Ronald Acuna's brother and then having him become a superstar that just would bother me more. You know what I mean? You just look at it, you're like, I don't know, man. It seems more likely that he could be great. Maybe that's based off nothing. It's not super scientific, but so I would trade Jet Williams. I would keep Acuna.
Go back to what John was saying about this, someone called experts and how they rank people. So again, they had Jet around 1 or 2, and we were seeing as the season progressed, before Acuna got called up, he kept getting lower in the rankings. All of a sudden, by the time it was all said and done, he was ranked as number 12 prospect on the Mets. They're like, oh, wait, maybe this guy isn't that good, and maybe he's just not all that. Then he gets called up, and dare I say, he was better than I expected, and I think maybe a lot of the experts expected. And I'll throw this number out there. I feel like I've mentioned this before, but Luis Angel Acuna, he hit 3 home runs in 39 play appearances. Meanwhile, Brett Baty hit 4 home runs in 153 play appearances. So, I mean, that right there, he showed you more in a couple of weeks than some other guys show you in months. So I want to see what I have in this guy. I'm not in a rush to just trade him away. And like we always say, like Andrew was making the point, I put more value on the guy that actually got to the big leagues and not someone who's got this injury and that injury. No, thank you. I mean, I like what Acuna provides me, and that's just power alone. We didn't even get to really see his speed yet on the major league diamond, which we know was really good in the minors. And I still just want to see what an up-the-middle defense of Acuna and Lindor looks like. I think it could be really exciting. And we talk about building up the middle. I think that's a really nice up the middle to have. And when we're talking about the experts, so if I'm a White Sox team and I'm looking at, okay, should I get the number 1 prospect or the number 12 prospect? That means that if I give up number 1, I have to give away a lot less, because it's not just going to be 1 for 1 and you get Crochet. It's a package. So if I have to give up Jet, but less prospects and less other really good prospects, definitely, because with Acuna, I'm still going to have to give up other top guys. So for me, I mean, it's Jet all the way is what I'm trading.
This is not DJ Stewart coming up in August where the games didn't mean anything. Like he said, this is, coming up in a pennant race. He also was filling in for Lindor, dude. He was playing shortstop MVP. For a guy who, when he got hurt, was maybe going to win the MVP. And outside of one error that he then made up for, he played a stellar shortstop. He was great. He hit the home run. He did everything that you would want him to do. It was almost like, and I love Lindor, so this is not an attack on, but it's almost like Lindor didn't miss any time. That's how good Acuna was stepping in the shoes of a guy who almost won the MVP, and the Mets didn't skip a beat. I'm not trading that guy. Or at least I'd not like to trade that guy. That kid
I want to
has
see
ice
what
in
I
his
have.
veins.
I want to see what I have.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think he's deserved the gateway to, get a chance with this organization. Now, Project Ball said this in the chat earlier. Trade the prospects for Crochet. Most of the bats in the farm are overrated. And I will say that I do agree with this in somewhat. I'm trying to find the tweet from Daniel Wexler. By the way, for those of you who don't know Daniel Wexler, one of the best, gives you some really good insight about a lot of minor league players, talking about a lot of the batted ball data and talking about a lot of what has been going on with a lot of these young players. And throughout the Mets farm system, overall, their ranks out of 30, a lot of these batted ball data, a lot of them are bottom 10, all the farm systems regarding offensive tools and stuff like that. I do see it. I do see it regards to some of these young players where I'm like, okay, I'm seeing some things where I'm like, this is not going to translate to the major leagues from top to bottom. There's some that I do believe that can be good, but next level, when you're talking about the Mets farm system, pitching is a little bit more of the emphasis as of right now. I do think that there are some bats that they just drafted under Stearns and Ben Gross that could be pieces that could elevate into great major league hitters. But there are some that they inherited that I would say that there's red flags. There are definitely some red flags. I know Vientos has come through fairly well. I know Acuna gave you some stuff. You've been seen a little bit from Alvarez in flashes, but you're still waiting to see some of that consistency. Personally, I would, and it's not really anything that I have trolling-wise when it comes to Jet Williams. I feel like the way that it's handled, the way that he is viewed, I think that he's viewed a little bit differently by the Mets as compared to other farm systems. A little bit frustrated when I saw that he got hurt in center field, because I personally think he should not be playing center field with the small body that he does have. You should not have a 5'6" center fielder. That should not be happening when the shortest that you usually see is like 6'1", 6'2". Different topic. I prefer to trade somebody like Jet Williams, not only because of, the value that he does withhold as a first-round pick. With that type of pedigree, we know that he is regarded as a prospect. When it comes to somebody like Luis Acuna, something that the Mets have really been missing, and we saw it on the major league stage, tools. The Mets have really missed a lot of tools to fill into the margins, and I think that makes him a very decent prospect that can really help you win games. And he did help you win games in the most important stretch in the season. I'm not talking about it as recency bias. I'm just saying as to where there's a lot of things that could translate from Luis Acuna. I haven't really seen much translate for Jet Williams in the upper levels of the minor leagues yet. And he's also hasn't been on the field to show it for him.
Carson, it's funny because if you want to take recency bias aside and just go to a person who's neither one of the players that we mentioned, I know it comes at a time when the Mets were not playing for anything, but when you mention tools and the spark that can provide, let's not forget 2 years ago when Ronnie Mauricio came up and you just saw athleticism and tools on display. That's the kind of thing that this team has lacked a lot of the time, over recent memory when they've been bad or when they've been good, but not good enough. And I think that the spark that players like that can provide, I don't know what Ronnie Mauricio is going to be after this massive knee injury, but, he was a guy I really liked because he was the poor man's Ellie De La Cruz or O'Neal Cruz. Like that's the kind of body type that he was bringing. And that's the kind of flash and sizzle that he had. And I also think you need some guys with a little bit of swag too. You know what I mean? Give me the Acuna swag. Give me the Mauricio swag. Like, I think you need that too. I think that's important.
And if this was the aforementioned tweet that you were talking about when it came to Daniel Wexler, when it was talked about when it came to the Mets rankings, when it comes to the hitting side, they ranked 28th in hit plus, 8th in 90th percentile EVs, 26th in contact rate, 17th in chase rate, and 23rd in barrel rate. So not the greatest of numbers down low. Once again, shout out to Daniel Wexler for all the great stuff he puts out on Twitter.